Jesus immediately left the synagogue and entered the house of Simon and Andrew, along with James and John. Now Simon's mother-in-law lay ill with a fever, and immediately they told him about her. And he came and took her by the hand and lifted her up, and the fever left her, and she began to serve them. That evening at sundown, they brought to him all who were sick or oppressed by demons. And the whole city was gathered together at the door. And he healed many who were ill with various diseases and cast out many demons. And he would not permit the demons to speak because they knew him. And rising early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus departed and went out to a desolate place. And there he was absorbed in prayer. And Simon and those who were with him searched for him. And when they found him, they said to him, "Everyone is looking for you." And he said to them, "Let us move to the neighboring towns, in order that I might preach there also, for that is why I have come." And so Jesus went throughout all Galilee, preaching in their synagogues and casting out demons. My sisters and my brothers, the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
You may be seated, and it's my great pleasure to introduce to you Bishop Francis Krebs, who is the newly elected presiding bishop of our beloved communion, the ECC. And it's a great joy for us and a great honor for us to have him here today. And also, this marks a big change that's coming for all of us, and that is I will no longer be the presiding bishop. My term will conclude this year, and that means I will be here full time as your pastor. This is his first official visit to our community, and he's now going to speak to us, so be very attentive and look interested.
Do you usually preach from here, or where you, does it matter? I'm already pretty tall, so I need to be up higher. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for receiving me and letting me be with you today. I've been experiencing the hospitality of your community all week long in different ways. I'm staying with Marilla and Peter and Matthew and Joey, and it's just wonderful being able to soak up all the good things here. I do want to acknowledge a debt that the 40 some odd communities of the ECC around the country and a couple in New York owe to St. Matthew's. We stole your pastor about 12 years ago, and so we're finally returning it. It's kind of like one of those mummies that's been in a museum, and the Egyptian government says, "We want it back." So we're finally saying, "Okay, you're right, it's yours." So we're bringing Peter back to you. But I can't tell you, I know that that's been hard for you, and the reason I know it is because my community has said to me, you know, "What's going on here? Are you gonna still be around?" Or, you know, so I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'll still be around." So I know a little bit just from watching Peter how much is taken up of his time, and I see my own community fearing that I won't be around very much, and so I just want to thank you. Please, find a place for him. You know, I hope it's not like the married couple who, when one of the spouses retires, then all of a sudden it's like, now what are we supposed to do with him? we got so used to him being gone. Now he's around. But, he's such a wonderful man. The ECC was nothing, and Peter is the single most important reason that we have 40 plus communities around the country and around the world. Is because you sent him out as an apostle, and we are all very grateful to you. We would not have a church to belong to if it were not for the gift that you gave to us. So thank you very much for doing that. I'm really, really grateful. If I may, I just want to focus on the gospel and just share this word with you. Peter, is there another opportunity for people who want to talk with me after this Mass, or was that it, the one we did?
That was it.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, good. But I'll be hanging out afterwards if anyone wants to chat about anything or ask me a question. I'll be around. Okay. Right now, let's focus on the gospel, if we may. So, if you're unconscious for some reason, and they bring you to the hospital, someone's going to be standing over you and trying to get your attention to see if you're with it, see if you're conscious. And so they'll ask you questions that'll help them judge this. They'll say, "Who are you?" Or they'll say, "Do you know why you were here?" And if you're able to answer those questions, then they can tell that you're pretty with it. You're awake and alert. But those questions have a much deeper reason for existing today in our church. Because we're not so concerned about whether you're unconscious, but just whether you know at a very deep level who you are and why you were here. It's as if Jesus, because by the way, we Catholics believe that we're not just having a service here today, but we actually believe that Jesus is with us. And that in some mysterious way, Jesus is actually doing the preaching, and Jesus is actually doing the breaking of the bread, and Jesus is actually gathering us and touching us today. We believe that. That's what we believe about the Eucharist, the real presence of Jesus. And just as Jesus walked up to this woman in the gospel that we read today, and lifted her, took her hand and lifted her up, just as he probably stared over her and said, "Who are you? Do you know why you were here?" Just as he did that in that gospel that's 2,000 years old, so he's doing it today with you. Sometimes we become disoriented like someone with a fever. She had this fever that was very disorienting. I don't know if we have antibiotics and terrific, medical approaches that can take a fever away a lot faster than in those days, but people would be delirious, just completely disoriented with a fever. That still happens today sometimes, like with Ebola and stuff like that. So life will do that to us in different ways because life is real and it's hard. As Job says in the first reading, life is very, very difficult. So sometimes we're disoriented because of the difficulty of life. So as Job says here, we'll be laying on our bed at night. Does this ever happen to you? And your mind is going 300 miles an hour. And you're like, why can't I sleep? And you roll over and you still can't sleep. Every couple of hours you look at the clock. Oh my gosh, when's dawn going to come? This is horrible, I hate this. Job is talking about this. So whatever that was, 2,500 years ago, 3,000 years ago, whenever these words were written, the same thing happening to us today. Sometimes we have a difficulty sleeping. Sometimes we just feel overwhelmed by life. Maybe what's going on in our family. We feel our job is threatened. If it sounds like a downer that I'm talking about these things, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be negative, I'm trying to be realistic. How many of you can agree with Job that life is sometimes difficult? Just show of hands. Okay, so it's okay to admit that. It's okay to say that sometimes it's very, very difficult and it's disorienting. And sometimes I just feel like I hate my life. For years I suffered from depression, and I remember that I had to learn what to do with those thoughts that would just run across my mind, where I would find myself saying, I hate my life. Life is difficult. Life can be really difficult. We find it difficult and we gather here on this Sunday morning, and we believe that Jesus is walking up to each one of us and taking us by the hand and saying, who are you? Why are you here? And if I look down deep inside myself, I can tell Jesus who I am. I can say, well, my name's Frank. He'd be like, no, go deeper. Who are you? And if I go deep, deep, deep inside, I discover myself to be someone who is in relationship with someone other. Maybe that sounds kind of philosophical if you're not sure what I'm talking about, or maybe you know this from the depths of prayer that you've been in. But if you get down deep, 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 you discover yourself not as alone, but as in union with someone else. You're in relationship with someone else. And there's something that's so deep and so real about that it can become like a spring for us, where all of a sudden we know who we are. It's like we're waking up out of a fever and we can say who we are. It's like a teenager who falls in love for the first time. It's like before all they wanted to be was independent, and now they've discovered love, and it's like everything's different. I'm running and skipping and singing and just happy because somehow I know who I am. Why? Because I'm in relationship with someone else. All of a sudden I discover who I am in that. And it's like that for us down deep inside when we know that we are in relationship with God. And then if we plumb a little bit further and we hear the voice saying, do you know why you are here? It's because the one we are in relationship with is calling us to something really special. And so the answer for me, when I get in touch with my deepest self, I say, yeah, I'm here to be an unconditionally loving man. That's why I'm here. Who are you? I'm the one who's in relationship with this awesome other. Why are you here? I'm here to be an unconditionally loving man. In those moments, brothers and sisters, our mind's not going 300 miles an hour. We're not overwhelmed by all the stuff at work. It's as if someone's lifting us up. You could almost picture Jesus just lifting us up like he did this beautiful woman in the gospel. Lifting up past the feeling that I'm overwhelmed. Lifted up past the feeling that I hate myself. Lifting up past the feeling of this life is just a bunch of you know what, but I could never say that word in a homily. Just past all that into some realm where I'm alive and I'm happy and I know what I'm about. Yes, life is difficult. Yes, that does not go away. And it's true that I am an unconditionally loving man living that life. And a kind of nobility comes over me in that moment. And I'm healed. And I'm conscious. And I'm awake to what the Creator wants me to be conscious and awake to. The last thing I want to say is that we can do this for each other. when your partner, when your friend, when your coworker is feeling like they have a fever and they're disoriented and they don't like their life and they just feel down, you can figuratively or really take them by the hand and remind them who they are. Tell them the goodness that you see inside of them. You can tell them why they're here by reflecting back to them their own goodness. And as you do that, you'll find them standing up out of their fever, out of their disorientation, and becoming something they couldn't have been without your touch. And if there's no one there to do that for you, then you can do what Jesus did. Get off by yourself and just be alone with your God and allow your God to say that same thing for you. Jesus was exhausted. The people were piled up at the door. All he was doing was just ministry all day long, and he just decided to go off and be by himself. And when he was in touch with his God, he felt himself lifted up, and he was able to go back to it. That's our call this morning, to do it for each other, and when there's no one around to do it for us, then to simply turn to our God and allow ourselves to be lifted back up. I really think that's what Jesus is telling us today as he walks around among us. Can I get an amen on that?
Amen.